Yo, this is for the dirty dog Abu Layth who disrespect our brothers and sisters of Palestine. Yeah.
These masked thugs barged into my home. No sense of dignity for a person's family. Frightening to death my wife, my daughters, my 6-year-old, my 9-year-old.
So the attack on Mufti Abu Layth's home happened earlier this week on Sunday. I saw an article about it on Monday when I was at the airport, but now I watched the video. You know, I've spent the past several months trying to detox from the internet and social media, trying to avoid negativity. 2 of our 5 sons have a rare disease. They're on life support. We lost our night nurse a while back, so I had to take over as night nurse. Been staying up with my kids at night, reading. I've been sleeping during the day. In the evening, I wake up and go to the gym. I noticed very quickly that by not being on social media, I was becoming less aggressive. I would still watch a YouTube video here or there for entertainment. I went on a couple of live streams. But apart from that, I was totally avoiding social media, and being away from negativity, combined with hitting the gym 5 to 7 days a week, I started feeling better than I've ever felt in my entire life. I've always been surrounded by hostility in one way or another, except for this year when I've avoided it, and I've just been surrounded by my wife and kids. The world feels totally different. Then recently, I decided to get back on YouTube. Even though I'm now nicer than I've ever been at any point in my entire life, I was immediately greeted with a barrage of insults and abuse. I didn't respond. D-Love doesn't care if you insult him. D-Love wants to get along with everyone as far as it depends on him. But now, after I've been back for all of 5 seconds, I see jihadis storming a man's house and terrorizing his daughters.
Where the fuck is Abu Layth? Where is Abu Layth? Where is Abu Layth?
I've been back for 5 seconds, and these dudes already have me wanting to eat their freaking book. Can you imagine your family being woken up in the middle of the night by a gang of jihadis breaking through your front door? I can. This is something that anyone who criticizes any of the teachings of Muhammad or the Quran has to anticipate. When you criticize anything having to do with Muhammad or the Quran, people start sending you death threats. Threats against you, threats against your spouse, threats against your children. And you know that most of these keyboard jihadis aren't going to do anything, but you think to yourself, wow, if even 1 or 2% of the people who say they're going to attack us are actually intending to attack us, that's still a sizable number of people who could be kicking down our door one night. Fortunately, it's never happened to my family, but it did happen to Mufti Abu Layth and his family. If you're not familiar with Mufti Abu Layth, he's a Muslim scholar. Before the attack on Sunday, I had only watched maybe 3 of his videos, so I apologize if I get any of this wrong. He seems like someone who wants his interpretation of Islam to be compatible with the modern world. He spends a lot of time criticizing Muslim scholars and apologists who have outdated positions that fly in the face of reality. In one video I watched, he was making fun of Sheikh Yasser Qadhi and Muhammad Hijab over the infamous holes in the narrative interview. In another video, he was making fun of the Salafi concept of God. Salafis believe that Allah has literal body parts, but they won't say what those body parts are apart from what the Muslim sources say. And when you put together what the Muslim sources say without filling in the gaps, the picture of Allah you end up with kind of seems like a monster created by a mad scientist as part of some sick experiment gone terribly wrong. Mufti Abu Layth makes fun of their position, but this sort of thing gets him into trouble quite a bit. Now, most non-Muslims I know tend to like Mufti Abu Layth, not because he's making fun of Salafi theology, but because he seems like a generally nice guy. There are people in the world that don't seem like people you would ever get along with. Mufti Abu Layth seems like someone that most people would get along with. He's much friendlier and happier than a lot of other Muslim apologists on YouTube. He's got one of the most hilarious laughs ever. The only person I know with a hilarious laugh like that is Anthony Rogers.
From my stuff, what?
Father every time.
The funniest thing I can imagine in this world would be watching Dave Chappelle or Bill Burr doing stand-up with Mufti Abu Layth sitting on one side of me and Anthony Rogers sitting on the other side of me. A comedian tells a joke and all you hear is... So, Mufti Abu Layth's main crime is criticizing and sometimes mocking positions that he disagrees with. It's the same crime that gets many of us into trouble with keyboard jihadis. But here's the key. Once you enrage certain people, they don't attack you directly. Instead, they try to stir up a violent mob against you as soon as the opportunity arises. And the opportunity that arose recently was the latest Israeli-Palestinian conflict, attacks, bombings, whatever you want to call it. Emotions are running high whenever anything happens between Israel and the Palestinians. Some people use this to their advantage. So, if you have a problem with Mufti Abu Layth because he's been making fun of your theology, you see global anger as your golden opportunity to stir up a violent mob against him. Just to be clear, Mufti Abu Layth is no fan of Israel.
Right, okay. Israel is at a state level, it is a terrorist at a state level. Okay, this is not anti-Semitism. The truth is, at a state level, it has committed war crimes. Israel is a tyrant terrorist state. I'm being very clear that Israel is being a terrorist state. That's what it's doing.
But he acknowledges that Israel is here to stay.
Another very hard truth is that Israel is here to stay. I think we as Muslims have to accept that Israel is here to stay. You see, Israel is not going to go away.
Where Mufti Abu Layth differs from the people who are targeting him is that he believes human lives are more important than possessing a particular piece of land or a particular building.
But TKR, it's only bricks and mortar, it's not life more valuable. It's, Allah didn't send us on this earth just to preserve some bricks. Preservation of life trumps all. What is really tragic is the amount of people dying. Here you've got entire hundreds, thousands lives being killed, blood being shed, and people, they're upset about it, but they're like, yeah, but the Holy Land. What the hell is the Holy Land? Yeah, what is this Holy Land? The Holy Land, the Holy Land. We need to realize that, look, human life comes first.
The people who are targeting him seem to be convinced that the ongoing conflict over some land and buildings is far more important than the lives that are being lost. The people who want the violence to continue shame the Palestinians into continuing an endless, hopeless conflict.
So you have these terms sometimes like slut shaming and this kind of stuff. Muslims do that to Palestinians. Muslims do it. What they do is they guilt trip them. That you guys have to stay there and you have to put up with this because this is the Holy Land you're defending. Okay, but we have to just accept that this war is lost. There's no point fighting a lost war. Why are we guilt tripping these people to put up with it? We should be, life comes before place. This is my understanding, that we need to know when a fight is lost.
So, Mufti Abu Layth looks at this situation. He doesn't believe that the Palestinians will ever be able to defeat Israel. He doesn't believe that the two sides will ever agree to a two-state solution. So he concludes that the best path to peace is for the Palestinians to be relocated and compensated.
The truth is, there does need to be a solution. So ideally, it ought to become two-state solution. But I feel that that's never going to happen. I would say that all Palestinians should leave Palestine. and it should be facilitated for them. I feel that they should be relocated and comfortably with compensation and accommodation and education paid for in different parts of the Arab world. Israel probably would even be happy to pay for it because the amount of money it spends on even bombing them these things don't come cheap.
Whether you agree with him or disagree with him, his relocation solution is not a crazy position. Even from an Islamic perspective, when Muhammad couldn't win in Mecca, he took almost the entire Muslim community of Mecca and left. He came back years later with an army, but when he couldn't win, he left. Mufti Abu Layth is basically saying the land that the Palestinians are in isn't nearly as important as Mecca was to Muhammad. So why are Muslims more obsessed with the land and buildings than they are with the lives of Muslims? Him saying that was the golden opportunity his enemies were waiting for. Keyboard jihadis apparently believe that if you oppose their theology, it's perfectly acceptable to misrepresent what you've said in order to stir up a violent mob. So they started circulating clips of Mufti Abu Layth taken out of context, which made it seem like he was siding with Israel and telling the Palestinians that they need to be kicked out of Gaza and the West Bank. And it didn't take long for jihadis to attack his house.
Come on, motherfucker! Come on, motherfucker!
Those are some tough dudes, aren't they? Jihadis in other parts of the world are fighting soldiers. Not these guys. They're terrorizing little girls. And they don't roll up on Mufti Abu Layth's daughters with one or two guys in broad daylight. No. They kick down the door in the middle of the night and roll up on those little girls with like 8 lions of Islam. Let me speak to them directly as I close out. Dear home invaders for Allah, I know many of the popular critics of Islam. Based on my experience, I can say that people like you are the main source of hostility against your religion, your God, and your book, and your prophet. Yes, we think that there are all sorts of dangerous and stupid teachings in Islam, but if it weren't for people like you, thugs constantly trying to intimidate everyone who disagrees with you, most of us wouldn't care much what your prophet did 14 centuries ago. You enrage people with your terrible behavior, and then, when people who were minding their own business suddenly respond by criticizing your prophet and your book, you cry, like the little girls you target. If you ever take a break from kicking down doors and traumatizing little girls, tell us more about your wonderful religion.